Hello, today is the 25th of November 2024. As you can see, I'm in my bedroom in Ireland because I'm currently here on holidays for about 10 days. And I have to say, the first couple of days have been pretty challenging. And I'm not going to go into detail about a lot of the things, or I'm going to go into detail about one specific thing. Basically in the Thrive program they would call this a blip, where you just fall down into a hole where you kind of lose perspective of the path that you're on. My blips are mainly always linked with my negative self-talk, beating myself up, telling myself I'm not good enough, and really just tearing me down. So that's what I did do the past few days. But what I'm going to talk about is a moment that I had 2 nights ago, which basically reminded me of my depression when this uncomfortable feeling arose in me and really controlled my entire life and controlled me and felt so overpowering that I felt completely powerless to do anything about it. I didn't recognize myself anymore. It destroyed basically my life. What happened 2 nights ago was that I almost relived the moment when the uncomfortable feeling suddenly arose in me. The thing is, nothing happens without a reason, and why the uncomfortable feeling came up in me was not a surprise. It makes so much sense. It's got to do with my control issue, beating myself up, not feeling good enough, being scared of who I am or who I might be, and if I'm not a good person or whatever. So it makes so much sense. But the thing is, in my depression, when it happened so suddenly, and I didn't feel it coming on. But suddenly I had something like a panic attack where this uncomfortable feeling struck inside of me, and it took over the complete control over me and my life. So I'm going to describe what it was like a couple nights ago. Basically, I was just watching a series on my phone. My sister and my dog were beside me, and then suddenly there's this fear coming into my mind about emetophobia. My dad has emetophobia. It reminds me 1-to-1 of my uncomfortable feeling, what I went through in my depression, and since a couple of days I keep having these thoughts like, what if I get emetophobia? What if I get a fear of throwing up, and what if I can't control that? What if it's my uncomfortable feeling that's happening again? I feel like I won't be able to handle that. What if it gets that bad again? So I had these thoughts in between, but they weren't too strong. But then 2 nights ago, I feel how suddenly I got this intense fear of emetophobia and of losing control. And what happened in that moment, so suddenly, I was so fine before that, but suddenly this intense fear struck. And what happened was that I could feel how my awareness over everything that was there, my awareness of the room, the series I was watching, the people that were beside me, how suddenly my entire world got dark and focused completely onto this problem, onto this fear. My entire awareness was focused on this one thing. My entire world turned dark. There was nothing left in my world. There was nothing left around me. There was nothing left in me except for this fear. So everything that existed in my world was this fear. The only thing that existed was this fear. And it's not necessarily that the fear was focused on anything. It wasn't necessarily focused on emetophobia. But what that fear brought out in me was the feeling of absolute no control over what happens to me. So in that moment, I felt completely vulnerable, completely powerless. It felt like anything could happen to me in that moment and I wouldn't be able to do anything about it. I could feel how in this moment, emetophobia, or the uncomfortable feeling, could take me over and have complete control over my life. Because in that moment, I was full on helpless. I couldn't do anything to help myself. I didn't know anything anymore. And in that moment, if a fear would have attached itself to me, I would have completely believed that it was the truth, and it would have taken over my life, because in that moment my life felt out of my hands. And in complete truth, there's always something we can do. There's always an answer, always a solution. But there is this thought pattern that I've learned about in the Thrive program as well, which is like helplessness. It is helplessness where you feel like you have no control over a situation, no control over your reactions, and therefore you don't even attempt to help yourself because you already think it's hopeless. You think you're helpless. And in that very moment, I felt the same way I felt in the past when the uncomfortable feeling actually did take over my life. And I remember that moment where I was so vulnerable. I can't describe what it feels like. I think you have to experience that moment for yourself to truly understand what it's like. But suddenly everything in your world disappears. There is nothing left except for this fear, and you are completely powerless. There's nothing you can do to help yourself, and you just know that any second this fear, this intense fear, can take you over, can take your life over, and you will be controlled like a puppet by this thing, and you won't be able to feel yourself anymore, recognize yourself anymore, because something else has now taken your place. And this fear is more than just an intense fear. It's more than just a panic attack. Because often in panic attacks, it's you that is going through it. It's you that is handling it. You that is feeling it. But in a moment like this, which I've not experienced often in my life, I experienced it when the uncomfortable feeling came inside of me. But it's not something you just experience on a daily basis. It's a fear that cannot be described in words. It is so intense. It is so powerful. That's the point. That you have no power. It feels like you are completely powerless. And in panic attacks, it may feel like I'm so powerless, there's nothing I can do about this, but it's still you against the fear. In moments like that, it's like you don't even exist anymore. It's like you are so vulnerable, you're like an open book, and anything can be written down in it, because it's like you don't have the control anymore, you don't have anything to say anymore. Obviously, in that moment, 2 nights ago, I wasn't taken over by any fear, and I saw what stopped that from happening was my own awareness. How I was aware and I was seeing and feeling what was currently happening to me. I could see I was very aware of how my world turned dark and everything disappeared. I could feel and see how I became extremely vulnerable, extremely helpless, and I could see that moment where something could have absolutely taken me over. And yes, I was absolutely terrified of that, because I lived through years of feeling like I don't have any power, like I don't have any control over what's happening to me. But this thing, this uncomfortable feeling, was controlling me and my life. But being aware of that, and because of everything I've learned in the past years, the awareness that was in me kept me rooted. And that was the only power I had in that moment. And that awareness is the only thing that kept the fear from fully entering my body and taking me over. And once I became more aware and therefore got more perspective back, the fear more and more left and wasn't controlling me or wasn't trying to take me over anymore. The thing that remained then was the fear that I had currently just experienced something like that again. Something that I had forgotten what it felt like. But in that very moment, I understood once again how intense my depression was, how absolutely abnormal it was, how crazy, literally the definition of crazy experiences I had, and how there's no words good enough to describe it, which is also helplessness. The only thing that remained was my own thoughts about, is this proof that I'm getting depressed again? Is this proof that I'm losing the control? Is this the proof that I'm allowing my thoughts to get so bad? Is this the proof that I'm not growing and learning more, but that I'm falling deeper and deeper? The fact that this happened just shows how weak my thoughts feel at the moment, or how weak my thoughts seem to be. And that is terrifying me, because I'm so scared that that is the proof I'm becoming depressed again, that is the proof I'm actually becoming more and more helpless and losing the control more and more over my experiences and my thoughts. And of course, I'm still working through the Thrive program, and I'm getting better in certain moments, certain areas and stuff. But at the same time, I think because now I'm becoming even more aware of what thoughts can do and what they did to me in my depression, I feel like that's why I'm feeling more vulnerable. But there's always something you can do. And at the end of the day, if you don't give up, if you keep going, and then have this awareness and just be aware of what's happening to you, that's the thing that will always keep you going, and that's what is absolutely always in your hands. The choice to keep going or not, to give up or not, is your choice. But yeah, basically my thoughts were then so focused not on the fact that I made it out and the fear didn't control me and I didn't sink into this deep dark hole, which in the past took me years to get out of, this uncomfortable feeling. So I didn't focus on how great I was and how much I changed and how powerful I was in that moment, but the fact that my thoughts created this fear. I was so focused on that, and then telling myself how I'm getting worse, or I could be getting worse, or I could be becoming depressed. So focused on like beating myself up and how I wasn't powerful enough, how I felt helpless. Yeah, and the rest of the evening and the whole next day, there was underlying fear inside of me the whole time. And even though, and I didn't speak to anyone about it, because first I wanted to see myself if I could get out of it. I also wanted not to make this a big thing in case, if I talked about it, in case I would then see, oh my God, I am becoming depressed, or this is a big thing and it's not good. So first I just felt like I needed to not talk about it. And in the evening I had helpful thoughts to some extent, like thoughts and feelings are not facts, or like, for example, my sister in that moment when I experienced this fear, she didn't experience the fear, and my mom didn't, and my dog Akela didn't, because they didn't create it in their minds, which means this fear only was created in my mind and only existed in my mind. It didn't actually exist out there. It was only created in my mind through my own thoughts and through my mind. It's not a real thing. So I had these small glimpses of like hope, but mainly what I was focused on and what my biggest problem was. And also I told myself how I made it through the worst thing I could have imagined in my life before. I made it through what felt like the worst thing that could ever happen to me, what felt like absolute helplessness, absolute powerlessness, and no control. Something that felt like I would never get out of that again. I would never be able to be free from that. Something that felt so much stronger than I could ever be. And I made it through that. I got out of it. I freed myself from it. And I got the control over it again. So I can do that. If that were to happen again, I can do it again. I have this strength and I am learning every day, and I can make it out again. So yeah, these were things I told myself, and I sort of believed. But the main thing I was focused on, and the main thing that still scared me, and the reason why I had underlying fear the entire next day as well, was the feeling that this is a problem. Like, this is a real problem. And it might sound weird, because the thing is, everyone has problems. Everyone is like, oh, this is a big problem or a small problem I need to solve. I need to, find an answer. I want to find an answer. I want to find a way out of this. It's a problem that needs solving in my life. Everyone has problems. Everyone feels the burden of problems. But what I remembered from my depression, which then again I felt 2 nights ago, when I was when I was going to bed and said goodnight to my family, like after the panic moment that I had, what I felt in that moment was that how I felt like I couldn't let go of the feeling like this is a problem. I wasn't able to let go of the moment that had just happened and just be like, it happened, I'm safe now, it's over, it's all okay, I did it. But instead, it felt like I had a literal problem. It felt like that this situation didn't have an answer, which meant that it was a burden for me. It was something that I had to live with, which felt like I can't live with it. So it didn't just feel like a problem, it felt like it was an actual burden that was on my body, like something that was attached to my body, something that was part of me. Not just a problem that's like separate from me and I need to solve, but literally something that is attached to me, a part of me, like a burden that is a part of me and that I need to live with for the rest of my life. So I could feel in that moment how it felt like I couldn't let go of this fear and this slight problem that didn't really have an answer, but instead it felt like it was attached to me and there's no answer to what just happened to me yesterday. And if things were to control me and take me over again the way they did in the past, it's like that's a real problem. It's not just a problem that needs a solution, it's a real problem. It felt so real. It's like you feel the actual problem. It's as if you are the problem, like it's in your body. It's like a real actual problem. In that moment, it's like all of the unhelpful thinking styles that are described in the Thrive program were activated. And these unhelpful thinking styles are the reasons for why you become depressed, why you have OCD, why you have emetophobia. Everything, it's always down to the way you think about situations. And in that moment, I could see every single thinking style was activated. And that's why the situation was so intense. It's not that the situation itself was intense, it's the fact that all the thinking styles were activated and they made it feel and seem like it was so intense. And they made it so intense. So thinking styles like black and white, brooding thinking style, hypervigilance, zooming in on the problem, the perfectionism thinking style was activated. The helplessness, so strong. All of them were activated and all of them were going full force, and they were so strong and it felt so real. The next day, even though I was sort of okay, and I obviously wasn't still in that panic moment, but I still had this underlying fear the whole time because I felt the burden of this problem that I have, something that doesn't have a solution, this intense problem. So I could feel the burden of that the whole day, and I was like, it's not going to go away because there's no solution. It's an actual problem. It's a real problem. So again and again during the day, I kept remembering what happened and how I felt absolutely powerless. It then feels like your entire life is ruined and based upon this. It's like you have really lost the power, and I'm learning through the Thrive program how that's all just a thinking style, and I can change that. And I want to, but it's crazy yesterday how real it felt and how nothing else felt more real than that. And it was like, no, I can't live happily. I can't be so happy about what I have right now. I can't just let go and be free. This is an actual burden. This is an actual problem. This is real. And in the evening then, I decided to talk to Mom about it so that I could get some clarity in my own mind by just speaking it aloud. Often just brings me to clarity. And I didn't want to be alone in it, because that's another thing that I was so afraid of. That's how my depression started, and gradually more and more in my depression, I felt more and more alone, and I felt less and less like someone actually understood me. Because in my depression, when this uncomfortable feeling arose and so on, and I had these other struggles in school and arguments with Dad and so on, I always talked to Mom about it. But gradually, I felt more and more alone and felt less and less understood. And that's something yesterday I could feel again, how if I were to go further down this path, I would believe that less and less people can understand me and how I'm absolutely alone in this. Because that is, again, powerlessness and helplessness, which is a thinking style. And yesterday I could see how I gradually already believed that the Thrive program wasn't helping me. I couldn't help myself. Maybe talking to Mom wouldn't even help. Talking to my sister won't help because she doesn't understand this. She didn't go through this, and so on. And so I already believed a lot of things were pointless in trying them out, or wouldn't help either way. And I was so afraid that if this fear would get worse and if I was actually going to become depressed again, that I'll be completely alone at some point and believe that absolutely no one understands me, which I went through before. And so when I was talking to Mom as well, I said, so if I do ever reach that point again and I say things like, you don't understand me, or I, act unfriendly towards any of you, please know that I don't mean it that way and that it's just what I'm going through. And then, I'm sorry, but in those moments, there's nothing else that it seems I can do. And at first, when I explained this to Mom, I wasn't crying, but I could feel all of it again, like everything, from my depression and what I experienced the evening before there. What helped was that Mom didn't go against anything that I said, but agreed and said that that's the way it is in those moments. You feel absolutely powerless. And in those moments, there is nothing you can do except for go to someone you love and get a hug. Just be hugged and go to someone where you know you're safe. Because in that moment, you have nothing. And she said that she thinks if there is someone or somewhere that is like a safe space, she thinks that if, the people that are struggling like this and feel so helpless and out of control, she believes that if they have a safe space or a safe person that they can go to, that they will then more and more feel powerful. So she believes that that safety is the key. And I can agree with that as well to some extent, that if, for example, in that panic moment, you would feel safe, or you would know you are safe and there's someone there for you that will always catch you, then you would automatically be less afraid because you know you're going to be caught, you are safe. She also suggested that I should always talk to someone because talking often helps. That reminded me of the fear of my depression as well, where I got too reliant on talking to someone else because I felt powerless. I was like, I can't help myself, so I need someone else to help me. And then and then no one else was able to help me, no one understood me, and that just reinforced my belief that I'm helpless and nothing can help me and I can't even help myself, and going to other people, which I'm trying to do to help myself, doesn't even work either. So I'm really helpless, I'm really powerless. So I was scared to become too reliant again on that. One thing I also noticed and wasn't afraid to admit was that because I basically relived something that I went through in my depression, I could really notice how my uncomfortable feeling and what I went through and all the thought patterns I had were one-to-one exactly like emetophobia. And my dad always says he doesn't think anyone really knows what he's going through, and that I kind of know what he's going through, but I didn't experience that. I don't have emetophobia. Mine wasn't as bad as his. And yes, I didn't have emetophobia and I don't have that, and I'm grateful I don't have that. But again, my uncomfortable feeling was exactly like emetophobia. It was something I couldn't escape. It's like when you're afraid of spiders, because they are outside of you, you can keep your distance, you can stay away from them. But emetophobia is inside of you because you're afraid of getting sick. And my uncomfortable feeling was also inside of me. I was uncomfortable in my body. I could not escape my body. My body, my figure, the way I looked was literally the uncomfortable feeling. I wanted to escape my own body. And everything that Dad has described to me about emetophobia and and about the thought patterns, I can resonate 100% to what that feels like and what that is like. And in the past few weeks, I didn't tell anyone or say to anyone like, yeah, I know exactly what emetophobia feels like. Because first of all, I don't, because I didn't have emetophobia. I also didn't say I can 100% relate to it. I went through that exactly like that as well. Exactly the same thought patterns and so on. I never did that because I was like, maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe emetophobia really is worse. I shouldn't compare it. Like, I shouldn't say that because maybe it's really bad, you know? And I don't want emetophobes to think, girl, she's thinking so highly of herself or whatever. But now when I went through that again and remembered all of it, in my depression, I wouldn't have hesitated for 1 second to say, that's exactly what I went through. Whatever emetophobia is, it's not the fact that I was afraid of vomiting. I was afraid of, my body, the uncomfortable feeling. The fears, what we were focused on was different, but everything around it, the things that actually matter, everything around it was the exact same. It's just the focus of the fear was on something different. Yeah, so for the first time yesterday, I could admit to myself that what I went through was absolutely horrible. And what I went through in my depression, it to me was the worst thing you could imagine going through, because you are absolutely helpless and out of control, and it's as if you're just a puppet and anything can be done with you. The thing that helped me the most was when Mom said, Leona, you're not going to get emetophobia. You're not going to get that. Because first of all, it doesn't suit who you are. I had the uncomfortable feeling because that suited and fit perfectly with my beliefs, with my thought patterns. So, Leona, you're not going to have emetophobia. And it's normal for all of us in the family to be a bit afraid at the moment about like vomiting or that sort of topic, because Dad is emetophobic and his emetophobia is very, very strong at the moment. So it's quite normal for us also to be like, oh, what if I get afraid of that, or what if I have that too, or what if that's a problem that's gonna come into my life. Then she said how I'm still trying to run away from the problem and from the fear. The whole day I wasn't able to let go of the fear. I had this underlying fear, and the night when this panic happened, I was constantly trying to escape it. And what she said to prove that to me was how I'm trying to control it. I'm trying to find a solution, and that's why I didn't let go. I'm trying to find a solution so that I can definitely handle it, so that I can get rid of it, so that I don't ever have to live like that again, so that I don't have to feel it. So technically, I'm trying to run away. I'm trying to get rid of it so that I can absolutely escape it and never, ever, ever, ever have to experience that in my life again. But she said that you don't have to be afraid of it. You don't have to run away from it. You can face it, dive down there head first, and what's making me feel less powerful is the fact that I want to control it. The fact that I want to control it just shows how powerless I feel to be able to handle it, to bear it, to cope with it. So the fact that I wasn't able to just let go and the experience happened and it's fine, it's over, and it is a problem, but I don't have to take that burden on and make it a part of me. It shows how powerless I feel about the whole thing, and that I feel like I can't do anything about it. But Mom assured me, proved to me, and told me how I don't have to run away from it. And if I stop running away from it, but just cope with it, I'm going to prove to myself that I can do this, that I am powerful because I am able to cope with it, that I don't have to run away because I'm not powerless. I'm not helpless. I can cope with it. And her words were obviously her words, and that was the original way she said it, which I can't 100% recall what she said, but it made tears pool in my eyes and made me notice how powerless I feel and how small I think of myself, how I think of myself as this worthless, useless, powerless, helpless little human being who can't cope with it. And instead she showed me and she told me how, because I'm running away from it and I'm trying to, control it, it shows how powerless I feel. And instead I can stop trying to control it, let go, and prove to myself how I can cope with it. I am not helpless. I am very, very powerful, and I can handle it. The only reason fear is so strong, all of this is so strong, because you think of yourself as so powerless and helpless. It's the only reason. As soon as you think that you are powerful and you have got it, you can do it, nothing can control you, nothing can take you over. But talking with her, hearing how sure she is about all of it, just helped so much because I wasn't sure. And today in the series I'm watching, there was a scene where basically two girls who were girlfriends, one of the girls, her dark side came out. So this series is Legacy, so it's about witches, werewolf, vampires, blah blah blah. Basically, in this one witch, her dark side came out, and her girlfriend then kind of talked to this dark side and said, you don't have to be like this, you're a good person, blah blah blah. And she said that I always thought the way to get rid of my dark side was to run away from it. But it was actually that I had to love it. And then the woman whose dark side was present, she was like, and what if there's no love left in me? What if there is no love in me? And then her girlfriend said, until you learn to love yourself, I will love you. And then they kissed, and while they kissed, and basically the girlfriend loved the dark side of the other person, the dark side disappeared. And that made me tear up, and that is exactly the message that Mom was telling me that I had to see in myself, and that basically the series just proved to me. I need to learn to love my dark side, and then I will shine and I'll be powerful and strong. And basically yesterday, Mom was the one who loved my dark side, just how her girlfriend loved her dark side. And when Mom, was there for me and loved me for me and just accepted my dark side and was there for my dark side, it disappeared. It fell away from me. And that was so powerful, that scene. And I loved it. I just teared up and I was like, oh my God, that is exactly what I was supposed to hear today. I need to love my dark side. And as long as I can't do that, I need to surround myself with people who will love my dark side and who will show me that also I can love it. In that moment, I was like, oh my God, she's kind of, even though she's loving her girlfriend's dark side, she's kind of loving my dark side right now, and I immediately felt better. But yeah, anyway, there was so many memories yesterday that came back and so many things I was afraid of so many feelings I relived and experiences from my depression, which I kind of thought I, would never feel again, but I was always terrified of feeling that again and of reliving that. But I have to cut myself some slack and just show myself it wasn't like the past. Even though it felt like it, and in those moments it seems exactly like it, I'm different. I am different. And even if I were to get depressed nowadays, I'm still different, and there's still different ways of dealing with it. And as long as I don't give up, I'll make it. But again, I'm also afraid to say it was different from the past and whatever, in case, at some point I do really relive the past, and then all hope is lost and gone, and like, oh my God, it's so bad. And thing is also, yesterday then, for example, even though I had moments in the past few weeks that were like good and positive, still yesterday, all I could see was how even in those moments, it wasn't super, super good. Like, yeah, maybe I was happy, I was kind of enjoying myself, but there was still something underlying that wasn't so good. So then yesterday when I was in this dark place, or this fearful place, I was like, it's all just getting worse and worse. Like, even the good moments didn't seem like good moments anymore, because there was something that was always wrong, or something that wasn't 100% great. I just saw the proof that like it's all getting worse and worse, and it's not getting better, and I'm not having positive moments, even though I did in the past few weeks, even though, yeah, maybe they weren't 100% positive and there was always something underlying. But that's what I'm working on. And also, nevertheless, I still did feel joy. I still liked certain things. But in that moment yesterday, it just feels like that wasn't true. Like, maybe it wasn't true. Maybe I didn't actually enjoy those things, but just pretended like it and just kind of made myself believe like I enjoyed it, but maybe I didn't actually. And it was all dark and negative. And it just seemed like the positives weren't worth anything. It was like, no, it's all dark and bad, and there is no good anymore. Obviously, I'm still kind of recovering. I'm still trying to learn, and obviously I still don't feel super powerful in my thoughts now, and I'm so great. But yesterday evening, I did have a couple of seconds when I was sitting with Akela, who I love so much, and I love cuddling with her and being with her at the moment. Just looking at her, seeing how she's real, and she's with me, and she's so beautiful and so warm. And in that moment I noticed I am here with her. I am here. I am experiencing life as myself, and I am here with Akela, and I am powerful, and I have got myself, and I am strong, and I can do this. And I've got her, and I've got this connection between me and her, and it's me who's experiencing this, and it's me who's here with her, and I am powerful, and I can do this, and I exist in the present moment, and my life is the present moment. I am the present moment, because that's the only place I always am and will always be. I am the present moment. The present moment is infinite. The present moment is the strongest thing that exists. I am the present moment. I am strong. I am vastness. I am infinite. So I had these powerful thoughts, and that was so beautiful, and I could feel myself. I could feel my own presence. I was like, I am here. I am strong. I've got myself. I am myself. I'm here with Akela, and she's real. She's alive. And yeah, there was thoughts that were like, oh my God, I'm so scared. When she dies, I won't be able to handle that. And like, it's so horrible. I can't even think of that. Those are thoughts that like creep me out and are so terrifying to me. But even though, yeah, that's real and true, and I'm gonna deal with that, it's still in that moment she was real, and I still have that connection, and I love her, and I'm with her, and I'm with her right now. Like, I'm here with her in Ireland right now, and she's real, and she's part of my life. She always will be. And me and her in the present moment is infinite. connection, the present moment is infinite. So yeah, it was a nice, powerful moment, even though at the same time I had terrifying thoughts that felt unbearable. But again, I'm learning to deal with that, and if I don't run away, I can prove to myself that I can handle it. So let's keep learning until we are the most powerful beings in our existence, because we always are, we just don't believe it. So thank you for watching. I hope someone could learn from this. I certainly learned a lot, even though there was a lot of fear as well. But again, even though I can feel myself trying to run away and trying to control that feeling of fear, it's like that's what is showing me that I feel powerless. So instead, let it be there. I can handle it. Okay, see you next time. Bye.